I'm very honored today because we have a very esteemed guest with us. We have a man from Australia who's one of the world's leading NLP trainer. He's been practicing NLP for over 25 years and he's been trained by dozens of trainers, including the founders of NLP. And he is the founder of Spiral Somatics, Mr. James Tsakalos. James, it's a pleasure talking with you, and thank you so much for doing this interview for us.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, James. Before we get started, I thought we'll play a quick rapid fire game.
Sure.
Just as an icebreaker for me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I'll give you a set of words, and just the first thought that comes to your mind when I say that
Just like word association?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay. Food.
Delicious.
Movie.
Love them.
Love. Okay. Love.
Amy.
Wow, that's sweet. Life.
Fun.
Work.
So what is work? I do my thing. Yeah.
Okay. James Bond.
007.
Okay, last one is a tough one. James Tsakalos.
Me.
That's it?
Great.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll get into the serious questions. So first thing, we just wanted to understand from the audience perspective as well. If you have to give us a one-line summary or a simplistic definition of what is spiral somatics, then what would that be, James?
Okay. It's all about the body-mind connection, basically, but it's exploring that really, really, really deeply in terms of how your body informs and reflects your whole world, basically.
So with the body, how we can redefine the mind and how we perceive. Okay, good. I'm sure you would have done many transformations in your life with spiral somatics. If you could give us one or two moments that stands out that you can immediately think of.
With spiral somatics in particular?
Spiral somatics.
Okay, it's not really a transformational thing. So there are other things that are transformational technologies, transformational things that I'm involved with, like NLP and things like that. Spiral Somatics isn't really about transformation. It's just about helping people become more of themselves so that they kind of get out of the small box that people put themselves in when they say that, something just isn't me, I'm not one of those kind of people. So we kind of expand who you can be so that you can be anyone that you want.
Okay. So with this, I'll give you a few scenarios, James. Like,
Okay.
I know this worked because I've seen you in this workshop doing this. So if anyone has some kind of hesitance, a stammering issue, if they see a crowd or if they're in a case where they're not able to speak much and they're just stuck, would you suggest any changes to their body posture so that they can come out of this?
Okay. Again, spiral somatics isn't about creating change. It's not a change technology kind of thing. Other things are. And what I'd suggest so I'm not going to suggest anything to do with spiral somatics for that, but what I'd suggest is that with stammering and stuttering, I know that it's very much state-based. It depends on the state of mind that you're in. When people usually are quite relaxed and comfortable, things flow easily. When people are a little bit kind of worried or a little bit anxious or a little bit excited, or that's when things start to go a bit pear-shaped. And so what I generally recommend for stuff like that is do anything that is going to help you retain more parasympathetic engagement of your nervous system, which is the kind of rest and digest phase, as opposed to the fight and flight phase, which would be the sympathetic kind of stuff. And the easiest way to do that, so that like literally anyone can do, the easiest way to do that is stuff that you guys have known here in India for thousands of years. It's just making an adjustment to your breathing so that when you breathe out a little bit longer than when you breathe in. And if you just do that for a few minutes, you'll find that your system starts to kind of calm down and you come out of that kind of wired fight or flight kind of space and you come into a bit more of a relaxed and present space.
Oh, and that would alter the state of mind to...
Yeah, very much so. It's a very simple thing, but it's a very powerful thing. And it's something that I think kind of comes from here. This is comes from pranayama and that kind of stuff. And it's something that we've kind of, the rest of the world has picked up on in recent years, the way that, academic researchers discover things for the first time that people have known for a long time, But it's really simple. It's basically breathe out longer than you breathe in, and that calms you down and puts you into a more relaxed space in just a few minutes. Anyone can do it. It's really useful.
Wow. So do you also practice such kind of things, James? Like I'm asking in terms of your day-to-day routine, or when you're up for I'm sure you enjoy your work and there's nothing challenging, but when there's a moment that you want to up your game, do you practice anything similar?
Yeah, there's a variety of things that I do. Not so much Spiral Somatics, more kind of NLP stuff that I do. And that breathing thing is something that I do as well. So sometimes if I'm finding that my nervous system is a little bit rattled, like if I haven't slept well, for example, when you haven't slept and you wake up and everything's just like a little bit kind of on edge, times like that, I'll do that kind of breathing just to kind of bring my nervous system down. Other times there's things that I'll do to kind of get myself into kind of a peak performance zone. And I've got a range of things, but again, for anyone watching this, there's some really, really simple things that you can do. One of the things that you can do to kind of get yourself in the zone and out of your head, out of your thoughts, is literally just kind of soften your eyes a little bit, soften your focus, so that instead of you looking at some specific thing, you just kind of soften your gaze and you just soak up just everything around you. And for a lot of people, that results in kind of quietening down the noise inside, which allows you to be more responsive to what's on the outside. There's some other things as well, but that's just a nice simple thing that anyone can do. It's really fast to kind of get out of your head and into your senses and responding to the world around you.
Wow. Similar question, Game, probably as a contrast, right? Like if I want to do something, some people, the more I want to do something, the more anxious I become, right? Like that could also be a scenario like that. So for example, if I'm someone who's just afraid of darkness and I do not want to be afraid, and the more I think about it, even if I want to control my breathing, the more I become more. So is there any shortcut technique?
Yeah, I've got to say, like literally both of the things that I've just talked about, both of those things would be useful here, right? Because one of the things is that when people are afraid, that's when you're going into this fight-flight thing, right? And so that kind of breathing thing that I was talking about for a few minutes, that'll just reset your nervous system, so you'll be in a much more resourceful space. And when people are afraid of things that they're imagining, right? Because there's a difference between, if someone comes running at you with a knife or something like that, then you're like, here's this thing on the outside. But most of the things that people are afraid of are just inside their heads, right? So they're thinking themselves scared, right? And like people do this with worry and anger and frustration and all sorts of things. And whenever you're doing things inside your head that are resulting in you kind of being nervous or being worried or being afraid or anything like that, if you do that thing with the eyes, right? If you just go kind of soft focus and bring your attention onto the outside instead of on the inside, well then you're not having those thoughts and you can just be, which is quite a useful thing. I mean, there's lots of other things as well, like all of NLP, we've got so many different things. But in terms of just really simple things where you don't need to learn a technique or anything, those things are quite handy.
Wow, thanks. And on similar lines, James, now that you've mentioned about NLP a lot, and you were being one of the world's leading NLP trainer, if for budding, aspiring NLP trainers, if there's something that you would suggest, then what would that be?
Yeah, there's actually many things that I would suggest. So for anyone who's an aspiring NLP trainer, there's really three things. So one of those things is find someone, because you can do a course, you can do an NLP trainers training, which usually people will do after they've done a bunch of other NLP training. So you can do an NLP trainers training that's a course. But any course, even if it's a really good course, is not going to give you the same kind of experience that you're going to get from kind of learning on the job. And so if you can find a trainer who's a very experienced trainer, a very good trainer, and enter into like an apprenticeship with them, or just ask them if you can shadow them and just kind of get some experience of just soaking up and getting that stuff into your muscles, that's way more useful than just completing a trainer's training course, because you get more kind of live, in the moment stuff. I cannot recommend it highly enough. So that's one thing. Another thing is going to be, if you want to set out to become a trainer of NLP, make sure first that you're good at NLP. And like really good at NLP, like so that you don't have to think about it, right? Because there's people who learn NLP, but they don't have a lot of experience, and so there's things that they do, but they might need to check their notes, or there's things that they don't really kind of remember very well, or there's things that they're a little bit shaky on. But if you've been doing something for a long time, so that it's just in your muscles, like you've done it enough that you don't have to think about it, you just know it, you know how to do this process, you know how to facilitate people, you know how to read people, you know how to use your language in certain ways, and you can do all of that stuff without thinking because you're in those habits, that will serve you a lot better when you want to become an NLP trainer. And the third thing, and this is possibly a little bit more controversial, I guess. Not heaps, by the way. It's not going to be some juicy gossip or anything like that. One of the things that I always recommend, I have various protégés that are doing apprenticeships with me. And one of the things that I always recommend is once you've got enough of a sense of how to train, how to teach something, one of the best things that you can do is straight away, as soon as you can, start doing little things. Start doing just offer like an evening introduction or something like that, or do like a half-day workshop on something really basic, or just an hour somewhere. But like the more that you have the experience on your own of just doing something, like literally kind of organizing, getting people into the room, figuring out how to design this thing, the more that you can do that and the quicker you do that, the better, because there's a lot of people who kind of hold off on that, and they wait and they wait and they wait because they think, oh, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And you're never going to be ready unless you do the thing, right? And so you don't have to do it. You don't have to kind of put on a huge, big, like multi-day training or anything. Like even just a little thing, anything that kind of gives you the experience of, I'm training this now, I'm teaching this now, I've got a bunch of people in front of me in some venue. I've designed this thing from scratch. I've like the more that you can do that, even if it's for just something tiny, the more that you can do that and the faster that you can do that, the better that you'll develop your skills and the better that you'll learn to trust yourself that you can actually do this. Because otherwise people can go for years and years and years before ever doing anything because they don't feel like they're ready yet. You know?
Thanks, James. And offshoot selfish question, do you take apprentices from across the globe?
Sure. All you have to do is move to Melbourne, and
Yeah. Totally understand.
it's tricky, unfortunately.
I was just trying to trick you into taking me. Just a couple more, James. So, if for us to get, we've already have an idea of who you are. I've seen you. I've attended your trainings the last 10 days. What would be your life mantra, or is there any code that defines you or your thinking?
Yeah, there really is. There's a not so much a life mantra, but a thing that I always keep in mind, and every now and then, and you've probably seen these every now and then, like on Facebook, on social media, or just in conversation, someone will ask the question, if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, knowing what you know now, what would it be? And mine is always the same, because having lived and having experienced the life that I've and having met the people that I've met, and including some people that are extraordinarily successful and all that kind of stuff. One thing that I would offer as a piece of my advice for my younger self that I always keep for me in the back of my mind is that no matter how much people that you might look up to seem like they've got everything under control, that they know what they're doing, that they've got everyone, literally everyone, is just making it up as they go along. Everyone. CEOs, entrepreneurs, sports stars, famous people, people like you and me, and a lot of people have this idea that's like, I'm just kind of winging it, right? But that person, oh, they just like, I wish I could be like them. They've just got it together. They know exactly what they're doing. But everyone is just making it up as they go along. And if you know that and you realize that, then you can, that's a really useful thing in terms of like your sense, your perception of yourself and comparing yourself with other people. Because I've met and had as my students and had as my colleagues exceptional human beings, exceptionally talented human beings, exceptionally successful human beings, and literally everyone is just making it up as they go along.
We would just love to hear more and more from you, James, on those slides. Last question. So, predominantly channel viewers are between the age group of 18 to 25. So now that you've said one thing that you would advise to your younger self, another specifically in this day and age with the technological advancements and with things going around, for the young people, if there's anything else that you would like to say, then we'd just love to know that.
For the young people, social media is not the real world. That's a big one that I would say to the young people. You see things on your social media feed, and you can really kind of get this idea that this is real, that this is the real world, but it's not the real world. You know, I'm reminded of there's an American comedian who passed away quite young, sadly, called Bill Hicks, very famous American comedian, and he made an observation in one of his shows that you watch in America, media in America is crazy. Right? And so in America, you watch the TV, you watch the news, and it's all like, you know, violence and drama and people coming to you know, these days, people coming to eat your cats and dogs, which is a current thing, you know, all of this like horrible stuff happening. And it's like, oh, the chaos, and oh, there's all of these and then you look out your window and there's just nothing's going on. It's like there's birds in the trees, there's a car going by, like it's, like what you see on screens, and these days especially what you see on social media, that's not the real world. It's not real life. It's just what shows up on your phone, right? The real life is much as it has been. So don't freak out too much. Don't get too kind of hooked into believing what comes on your Facebook feed and your, well, Facebook, that identifies me as really old, doesn't it? Your TikTok feed or whatever, you know. Yeah, social media is not real, not real life. It's just people throwing things onto apps.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much for doing this. I must say that this is one of the most proudest moments of my career, to speak with you and to do this interview with you. And you spending this much for our audience, it really means a lot to us. And I must also thank Magic of Change for organizing this workshop, giving us, people like us, an opportunity to know James Tsakalos better. And I'm sure this interview with James would make our lives better. Once again, thank you so much for doing this, James.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
So much.
Cheers.
Thanks, bro.